going live on YouTube. And so let me get this positioned a little better. I think maybe we're going to move it back. Eventually, I'm going to level up. Come closer to me, Esquire.
No problem.
There we are. Yes, that's better. Hey, everybody. Hey, so we're on Instagram. And so I want you guys to know that we're paying attention to you. We have Facebook here. Smile, Facebook.
Hi, Facebook.
So Dr. Delvina, we're live on Dr. Delvina on Facebook. Being a doll is usually the better look, but you know, I wanted to go on the professional page instead and not from my personal page. So hopefully folks will start joining on Dr. Delvina. Hey, who has the Facebook? Veranda, you do? Can you share my live from Dr. Delvina to your Facebook? Or to my, if it lets you share it to my Being a Doll, share it to my Being a Doll for me. I think sometimes Dr. Delvina is an issue with going live.
Hey, this view is where you see. This is the Instagram view, which I just did.
Okay. Gotcha. Which one? Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, we're getting set up here. We just got a lot of cameras going. So we're trying to ensure that we're good on everything. It's Dr. Delvina, and I have a special guest in the champagne room. Everybody say, hey, brain love, a good brain love, hey, to Esquire, the attorney, Sue Ann Robinson.
Hello.
And so we're in the champagne room, and of course, you know what we have to have.
Champs.
And so
champagne
our sponsor.
For my real champagne for my real friends.
Ah, okay. I like
for
that.
My sham friends.
And the sponsor is Vuv. All righty. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to get started and get right into the discussion tonight. We're talking about R. Kelly. Yeah. So get yourself a drink also. Grab a drink. Grab something to snack on, whatever. We got a discussion going. I'm analyzing from the mental health perspective and
I'll analyze from the legal perspective.
And of course, I want you to send us your questions, your comments. If you want to come on live, we'll open it up for people to come on also and share the screen with us. So that way, if you want to make a comment and come on the screen, you can do that as well. So let's see. So everyone knows R. Kelly, who was acquitted of a crime in 2014, the last one. So he was acquitted in 2014, has been charged again with how many counts?
10 counts.
10 counts. And Esquire, how many years do each of those counts carry? What's the possibility?
So 25 to life. But he's probably gonna die in jail.
So and come closer to me so they can see you on Instagram land. Okay.
I mean, as he probably should, but we can get into that later.
Gotcha. So basically you're saying he's facing a lot of time. Now I read somewhere 10 counts, and each count there's a possibility, I guess, a range of years, how you guys do it in the legal system, up to 7 years for each count.
No, well, for the highest level of felony, he could get up to 25 years.
Wow. So he was charged with a felony that could get him 25 years by that one charge by itself.
Right. So then each one. So he's got, I mean, if he gets convicted, he'll be gone for a while.
And listen, how old is R. Kelly, guys? He's over 50. R. Kelly, I believe, is 52. So, I mean, do the math. He's going away for life. And so this is I'm the psychiatrist here, but it looks like he'll be convicted this time.
Could be. I mean, based on, the court of public opinion, certainly he's been convicted. So that's usually 50% of the battle.
So with this case, can he choose to have a jury duty or to appear in front of a judge, or how does that work?
No, he's going to have a jury trial, pretty sure. And, I think whoever tries the case, if they haven't been under a rock, is going to know, like, his situation. In jury selection, they'll do their best to vet out people that are going to be biased or people that would say that things they've heard about the case would influence them. But at the end of the day, we're humans. We're not computers. So,
gotcha. So, hey, over there, Facebook. Say hi to Facebook.
Hi, Facebook.
So, thanks for joining us on Facebook, guys. So, you're saying that...
I was just seeing it. There was a question. Is there no accountability?
We have someone reading questions. Don't worry. Yeah. So we'll engage in our commentary, and then I have 2 folks reading questions from you guys.
Okay,
so
awesome.
feel free to send your questions. We have someone on Instagram, someone on Facebook who'll be reading the questions or the comments too. If you have a comment, if you if you're neutral, you don't feel any type of way about it, please express yourself. If you're in support of R. Kelly and you feel like you still play his music and you believe in R. Kelly and you believe that he's innocent, be open, share that also. We want to hear all opinions regarding this case. So let's go backward a little bit and kind of look at R. Kelly's timeline.
Okay.
Right? So there is a mental health timeline and there's also a legal aspect too. Because R. Kelly has shared some information to the public about certain things that have happened to him in the past. YouTube over here. Let's not neglect YouTube. Hey.
Did he? Okay, so the things I know, obviously, that it's known that he was sexually abused. Was that something that he disclosed, or was that something somebody else disclosed? Because I know it was in that R. Kelly docuseries, but I'm just curious if he ever.
So from what I read, R. Kelly disclosed it.
Okay.
And I think that disclosure came later.
Okay.
I don't think it's something that he was open about early on in his career.
Okay.
And nothing like that. I believe that, for me, my interpretation, it was that was his justification for
what he was doing.
Certain behaviors.
Okay.
Yes, that was used to justify, hey, this happened to me. I was abused too. So what we do believe and what we know actually from statistics, a lot of people who were abused as a child or were previously abused, sometimes they also turn into the abuser.
Okay.
And so obviously that's not true in every case, guys. I'm not saying that. But that is something that is not uncommon for someone. I don't want to block you over here. For someone who was abused to then become the abuser later in life. Okay. So at age 12, R. Kelly said R. Kelly said later in life that at age 12, quote, experienced a lot of things at a very young age that I didn't know I was supposed to, including, close the quote, pardon me, including witnessing older youth rape one of his girlfriends. Oh, wow. So that's something else that was traumatic to him. He claims that he saw a girlfriend be raped by some of his friends. He also said later, in I guess a separate interview, that when he was younger, that family members actually molested him, sexually abused him. Okay. The assumption is that these family members were female cousins. That's the assumption. Okay. So.
Okay, the thing that really stood out for me in his timeline, and you could, obviously this is your specialty, was that his music teacher was like saying that he was disclosing to her that he had, or she was aware that he was dating or dealing with younger women, and she repeatedly kept saying to him, you got to stop.
His music teacher, so how old was he during, I
think it was his music teacher in high school. It was an older lady in the docuseries, and it wasn't like somebody relaying her testimony. She was actually the one saying, I would tell him, you got to stop with these young girls.
Wow. So she basically went on record, so to speak,
right?
Or in an interview said that in high school, she recalls that in high school, he displayed these types of behaviors.
Yeah,
also.
it was either high school or middle school. She was saying that the way he was expressing himself in music and the things that he would sing about and write about were, I guess, sexually explicit or advanced. And then later on, because they kept in contact, they kept a close relationship, she would kind of give him advice and say he should stop dating young girls or being around young girls.
Right.
After he was an adult.
Gotcha. So, and, those types of behaviors, so the explicit songwriting, the behaviors, oftentimes when someone has been abused, sexually especially, they act out in a way. Come closer, Esquire. Remember, you gotta stay in. Yep. So they do things like they act out. So certain behaviors, they become promiscuous. They do things like how he expressed himself in his music by writing those very explicit type lyrics. And I believe because he was probably damaged at a young age as far as sexual abuse goes. And we're going to get to some of your comments and your questions. I just kind of want to lay the foundation with Attorney Robinson, not just a lawyer. So that way you guys have some basic foundation, because maybe everyone hasn't been following this case. So the first question I'd like to ask you, though, is this. 1994, August 31st. R. Kelly, at the age of 27, marries 15-year-old R&B singer Aaliyah.
Right.
The couple weds in a secret ceremony arranged by R. Kelly at a hotel in Chicago. The marriage is annulled some months later because of Aaliyah's age. And so we know from some of the docuseries that people have said and admitted that some of the staff in Chicago, that they did some underhanded things or deceitful things so that R. Kelly could get a marriage license to marry Aaliyah. So here's my question. Is that admissible in court?
The story of him being married to Aaliyah.
The legal documentation that he married a 15-year-old. Is that admissible?
It could be relevant, but usually prior bad acts are not admissible.
Wow. Wow.
Just to show somebody's propensity or tendency, that's usually not allowed.
So if I'm R. Kelly's attorney, I'm overruling. Or I'm sorry, I'm objecting.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Objection.
See why I should stay in my lane?
No.
So
you were there though. You were in the right area of the highway.
I object.
She was there. So
yes.
Yes.
So if I'm his attorney, I would object if the other attorney says, hey, you married a 15-year-old in 1994. So we're establishing you have this pattern of behaviors.
Right.
Because in mental health, we look at patterns of behaviors when we're trying to help someone, when we're developing a treatment plan, when we're trying to diagnose, but I guess legal.
Right. Unless he's going to introduce, if he opens the door, like let's say he uses a mental health issue as a defense, and then he has a mental health expert testify, and then that person is testifying about him being sexually abused, and the Aaliyah thing comes up, then he opens the door.
I see. Okay. So that's not considered evidence. I can't say, Judge, I'm submitting this as what is the evidence A, evidence 1, or
right. It would definitely, I'm sure like there'll be pre-trial motions and things determining what's going to be entered. They'll have to proffer and show each other, hey, this is what I'm going to enter, what type of evidence I'm seeking to put before the jury, and the judge will have to make a ruling on it. That's why a lot of times the things that we go back and forth about in the court of public opinion, when you go to court and you're actually in court and you're a juror, the case is completely different because the judge is almost like a referee, and they're saying, no, not this. Yes, this is allowed. That's not allowed. So the story that the jury is getting can be completely different from what we get out on the street.
I see. So all of the things that we're all like, oh, slam dunk, he did this, he did that, he did this. Those things may not even be admissible in court.
Right.
Wow.
But I mean, with all due respect, based on the level of competence that his legal team has been showing so far, I mean, I don't know.
Please put it out there. Yes. Let's segue and talk about that, shall we?
Well, okay. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and, poo-poo on anybody's legal strategy, but at the same damn time, I just wouldn't have my client, who historically can only articulate themselves through song, do a national interview with Gayle King, like one of the top journalists, interviewers nationally. I just wouldn't have him do a sit down without prepping, at least.
So you agree that he appeared to be unprepped?
Oh, absolutely.
He was not prepared.
He was bamboozled, led astray, unprepped. Yeah. He was just...
Why would his legal team do that to him?
Right.
I suggested yesterday that he fire his entire team.
Fire
them all, R. Kelly.
And the stylist.
Fire them.
The outfit,
fire them.
Everything, top to bottom. They didn't give you fresh cut. They ain't do nothing for you. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, as soon as the interview started, what did he do? So, because I know attorneys also look at, and judges and, people in the courtroom, sometimes you look for evidence that someone is lying or not telling the truth. And especially when you're what is it called? When not cross-examining, but when you're questioning someone on the stand. Or,
just taking testimony.
Yeah. So I think sometimes when you can tell that someone is not telling the truth, or there's a hole in the story, or there's an inconsistency, you guys as attorneys, it's like blood to a hound or a dog. You just jump all over it and you tear their story apart on the stand.
Right. Which I'm like, that's what Gayle King is trained to do. Like, that's her whole job. She interviews people. She's, you know, an investigative journalist in the sense that she's very tough. So I'm just like, you just sent him to the slaughter.
Yeah.
Basically. I mean, you could have just, I think with prep, it would have been better. Emotionally, he would have been a bit better. But I don't know, you know, just based on my own personal feelings about the case, that I want his legal team to be any more competent. But I'm just, but legally speaking, you know, putting a client out there without prepping them, without, you know, even being there, because it didn't seem like anybody was even there in the room. Because I know when I have clients that do press, I'm sitting right there.
Yes.
And
listen,
like, we're good.
The part when he decompensated and totally fell apart. And so you guys may remember this. If you watch the interview, he jumped up out of his chair and he started to yell. Before he jumped up, use your common sense. Then he jumped up and he started to yell, and he started crying, and he started getting angry. And his publicist, I think they said that a man came over to settle him down. And Gayle King said in a separate interview that she wasn't sure what he was going to do when that happened. And even the staff watching said they weren't sure if R. Kelly was going to do something, if he was going to run out, if, you know, if this was going to lead to something else. Because
but they kept them cameras rolling.
Of course they did.
They kept them rolling.
And he said, do you have the camera on me? Are you watching me? Are the cameras rolling? I want to say this. So my point here is his team was nowhere in sight, as you said, because they would have been somewhere in the background motioning to him to shut the fuck up. STFU, be quiet, because you're looking bad. You're not, you're not helping yourself.
Yeah. If R. Kelly was my client, which he's not, thankfully, but I would have put my whole body in the shot, and then we would have had to wrestle out the shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, sir, you're not going to ruin my case. No. We're going to take this somewhere else. We're going in the bathroom. Okay. We're going to get this worked out. Everybody was just like, okay, let's
they just let this man
watch this train wreck.
So listen, well, they said he does not have any money. He owes $160,000 in back child support. He has legal fees. And one of these, and we'll go over this, some of the legal settlements he's had from his past. One of the settlements they have documented as he settled the case at $250,000. I don't understand how he doesn't have any money. Well, this is a guy who sold millions of albums.
And he wrote a lot of songs for people.
Yes, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston.
But they didn't stop playing songs he wrote. I just want to understand how he's saying he doesn't have any money, but he can support not one, but two girlfriends.
But what type of support is that? Yeah, but what type of support? It could just be that they're living in his house.
But they don't work. Do they work?
No, I don't know. Yeah, I think so. When I listened to them today, Gayle interviewed them when? Today or yesterday?
Yes, it was today.
Today. Right. So I said, you know, to me, this sounds like these two women, I'm sorry, they're in their 20s now. They probably don't do anything. They just live in this house and they feel like this is a come up for them. So yeah, I didn't assume that he's buying them Chanel bags.
I mean,
and
they
taking
looked
them
well
shopping.
Put together. They didn't have on old wigs or anything like that. Like they were together. So I mean, somebody spent some money to get them there.
Yes, okay.
To put them together. So I'm just saying, like, you know,
gotcha.
They can't be in the house just eating Cheetos all day. Like they have food, they have stuff. Like,
yeah, but what type of stuff? What type of? And his house, isn't his house in foreclosure? One of his houses or his primary residence was in foreclosure.
So you think they're living like it's like a bunker, like they sleep on a mattress?
I just think he probably has a lot of old stuff there from before. I don't know what he's been doing with his money. It's probably not an excessively nice home.
Okay.
Like I'm not thinking that.
It's probably just something he's had for a while.
Yeah, just something he's had for a while there in Illinois, Chicago, somewhere in the suburbs. So look, before we take our first question, I actually want to mention something. Everyone was kind of like, ooh, when they said how much his bail was. They said his bail at $1 million. Okay, listen to this. 10%. And yes, okay, exactly. So for those of you who don't know, you only have to pay
10%.
10%. And so a stranger paid his 10%, his $100,000, right?
Right.
Some lady.
A woman, yes.
Yeah. So listen. That's today in 2019, $1 million in bail. June 5th, 2002, Kelly is indicted in Chicago on 21 counts of child pornography. This is a case we all know about, stemming from the sex tape. He pleads not guilty and is released on, who wants to guess how much his bail was at that time? Peanut Gallery? Anyone want to guess how much the bail was in 2002?
Not sure. I don't know.
Okay. His bail in 2002, 17 years ago, was $750,000.
Inflation. They raised it
So,
for inflation.
yeah, so not that much different than this $1 million.
Right.
Right?
It's, you know.
So let's take a question. Let's go to Facebook first. So comments or questions? And we'll still keep you in the thingy over here. So any comments or questions from Facebook? Who has my Facebook?
There is one Marveline Pierce. Is there no accountability for parents?
Child.
Okay, so the comment was, well, the question was, is there accountability for the parents? Yeah, can we call, so in Florida, we have DCF. Can we call DCF on a parent who allows their 13-year-old to go and sleep in the bed with a known child molester or sexual abuser? Can that be considered, parenting neglect, or is that reportable?
I think it's reportable.
I think so too.
Report it and they could investigate it. I don't know how well
exactly
they're going to do on that, but you definitely could.
Mm-hmm.
You could report it.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that's kind of endangering the welfare of your child.
Absolutely.
So if you're allowing a 13-year-old to date a grown man, that's endangering the safety of your child, the welfare of your child. For sure. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Azriel and Jocelyn because I did catch some of their interview today. And it was interesting that they said, or they claimed, allegedly, that their parents, when they brought them to R. Kelly, told them to lie and say they were 18.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Which I thought was interesting because it was kind of like, did they know that the kids would be turned away? Or is this just something that R. Kelly's telling them to say because he's basically raised them since they were kids? Like, just interesting. But I think with the parents, definitely there should be some accountability in terms of, someone at this level, this visible, is allowed to do something like this for so long only because they have people assisting or enabling.
Right. Yeah, he had a lot of enablers in his circle. People supporting his efforts to rape young kids, basically. So
what's their mindset? Like, what do they think they're doing? Like, from a psychological perspective, like what state are you in when you're participating in that?
So we know that children who are abused, a lot of times the profile, it's someone who may come from a broken home. It could be someone who there's financial issues in the home. There's some type of neglect there. It might be, and even in a 2-parent home, there can still be neglect. There can be issues with finances and a child feeling, not loved or not having security. So those are the types of things that can make a child more susceptible to being abused or, participating in human sex trafficking. So, that's what we think of. That's the typical thing. However, with these young ladies, I'd like to say that I read somewhere that there wasn't any of that. Like it's 2-parent homes, no financial issues.
The parents were kind of like involved in their lives because they were trying to help them with these careers and they weren't street kids
now. So and that's a good point, that starstruck, people who are just so in love with entertainers and celebrities who'll do whatever it takes. Because we know, you've seen young kids passing out when Michael Jackson would get out of the car or go to a concert. New Edition, growing up, how, everyone was so in love with New Edition, and little girls less than the age of 18 would be in the audience and screaming and yelling, "I love you," and things like that. However, you think that most of these celebrities or these artists or entertainers, they don't act on it. They know that it's a young kid. They know it's a young girl or a young child or young boy, whatever the case may be, and they don't act on it. Whereas R. Kelly, because of the fact that he's a pedophile, which is a title, a label that has been avoided a lot. People are using other terms to describe him, but he's a pedophile. R. Kelly is a pedophile. And I'll tell you, in the 8 years that I worked in the prison, the pedophiles that I've treated don't admit to being pedophiles. It could be, a gargantuan load of evidence against the person, and they don't admit to the wrongdoing. They just will not admit to it. I remember I had a client some years ago where they confiscated the computer. There were all sorts of pictures and porn stuff. And also in this person's house, and he denied everything. He said someone else did it. So that's the difficulty in treating these types of fetishes or these sexual disorders, basically, because people don't admit or acknowledge that they have this problem. So
I'm just thinking all the time of a defense that could be mounted. And, you know, if he does go with a psychological defense that he has some mental issue, is there anything he could...
It ain't gonna work.
No.
And, you know, the reason being is this. He has no history that we are aware of. And if he had a history, it would have come out already, I think. If he had a history of being previously formally diagnosed with something or receiving treatment, what I see in R. Kelly is basically he's a psychopath. He has, I believe, either antisocial traits. And so most people think antisocial means you're not socializing. You don't want to go to the party, or you're staying in your house, you're isolating. Antisocial is actually a clinical term. Antisocial means that you do the opposite of what's right. You're always breaking rules. You're breaking the law. You're sneaking and manipulating people. The person may be, you know, very nice and very charming, but then on the other extreme, they're a monster. So R. Kelly has shown evidence or behaviors that are consistent with someone who's antisocial. A lot of cover up, a lot of misrepresentation. And obviously, you know, we're not inside of his head. We don't have the hardcore evidence or facts because we're not living his life. But you and I both are professionals, and, you know, we know when there's a red flag that suggests that there's something going on. So mental health problem. Usually with the courts, they want to know your history. Have you ever been admitted to a psych facility or a hospital? Ever tried to kill yourself? Did you seek treatment like in an office, an outpatient area, or, you know, going to see someone like a mental health professional, a therapist, a psychiatrist, where you ever prescribed medications? All of those things come into play when the judge, I don't know if you would call it discovery, but when he requests that information or that collateral to make, I guess, to support the claim that someone's client has a mental health problem.
What I think I would do if I was the prosecutor, I would try to introduce songs like Aging Them But a Number. I'd be like, ladies and gentlemen.
But it was a Aaliyah song. But R. Kelly wrote it.
He wrote and produced the entire album.
Wrote it.
And then married her. I'd be like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would sit up here and argue with you all day. But I'm just going to let the record speak for itself.
Right.
And I would put that song on. I mean,
that's why I asked you, is that evidence like that he married that girl?
Song? No, let's talk about the song that he actually wrote, admitting, basically, like that. The song, man, he ruined Aaliyah for me. That's really why I'm in my feelings, okay? Like, I went back and listened to the lyrics. I was like, dang, she really trying to holler at a grown man. And like trying to convince.
What are some of the lines that are memorable for you? What do you remember from that song that stands out? Peanut Gallery, can we get some lyrics from AJ?
There's one where
lower down ain't nothing
but a thing.
You know it.
But there's a part where she's
what
like,
else?
You know, like, I might be young, but I'm ready. It's too much.
Okay.
Too much.
So
my mind's telling me no.
But my body's telling me yes.
Yeah, that's
baby.
I don't want to hurt nobody.
But I'm trying to confess. Like, literally says confess in the song. Crazy.
We ignored a lot. We did ignore a lot. That guy was expressing himself through lyrics.
Yep.
Okay. So let's do, can we go to Instagram, please, and take a question or a comment?
Okay, we have a question. How do you know he is a pedophile again? Innocence until proven guilty.
Okay, number one, he married a 15-year-old. That makes you a pedophile. 15 is illegal. Number one, that's the first case we know about. But prior to that, let me tell you, past behaviors predict future behaviors. What people do in the past, a lot of times has a lot to do what they'll do in the future. All right, so case closed. Just that one thing makes you a pedophile.
Okay.
You're a pedophile. A lot of guys think, oh, she was 15 or 16. You're a pedophile if you're trying to date or you're dating or intimately involved with a 15-year-old.
Boom.
Next question or comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Legally, is he a pedophile?
Well, I don't know what the clinical term pedophile means. I think it means if you like, is it someone that's not of legal age that you are
It's a child, basically. Pedophilia. Pedophilia.
Okay. So
basically, it's a child.
Okay.
Inappropriate sexual or
Sounds
personal
like he
acts
is.
with a child, a minor.
Yeah.
We have a couple questions. It
Okay.
says, is it a statute of limitations for what he's being charged with? This is for the lawyer.
Well, if you guys recall what just happened with Bill Cosby, there's been some changes to how the statute of limitations works for sexual abuse cases, but also this is evidence and crimes that were essentially, I believe what the state is going to say, they were concealed. Like, I remember from the docuseries, the witnesses or the people in there were talking about how R. Kelly taped everything. Like, he taped all his stuff, like all the time he had a camera. And to me, I was like, well, where the hell are all these tapes? It's 2019. The tape's got to be somewhere. Sure, there's nowhere to play a VHS tape anymore, but the tapes must exist still if he was taping them. And you can tell me, they were saying that people who commit these type of crimes want to keep souvenirs, and that's why he was recording them. So I can't imagine that he destroyed the videos. So they have to be somewhere. Like someone has them or knows where they are.
Okay, so this is another question for the lawyer and Dr. Thomas. The sentiment seems to be guilty until proven innocent. What about his innocent until proven guilty?
Oh, okay. No, I absolutely think that, and that's why I discussed the things that his legal team were doing, because you are innocent until proven guilty. But the court of public opinion is something different. And that's what he stepped into when he went to the interview with Gayle King. He was trying to plead his case in front of the public. He wasn't in court. And so when he did that, he subjected himself to social media, people's opinions, obviously other people that are going to analyze his behaviors and what he's doing to look for signs of him being innocent or guilty. So I think the idea of innocent until proven guilty applies in a courtroom. Absolutely. And it should apply generally. But I think he went to the court of public opinion by exposing himself in that way, by saying, I'm going to go do this national interview. And when he did that, he subjected himself to people's opinions, which a lot of people's opinion is that he's guilty.
So 2 things. I just want to be clear. Pedophilia, you don't have to engage in a sexual act. There doesn't have to be any kissing. It doesn't have to be any of that. Pedophilia is being sexually attracted to children, to minors. So typically before puberty. So children, now that's where a fine line, because I think the youngest I've heard is age 13.
Okay.
Right. So
is that why I thought it was interesting when she asked, are you an older man that likes younger women? And he said, no, I don't look at age. I look at legal. And I get it, because he can't articulate himself. Okay. Unless it's a song. So if Gayle was like, Robert, what do you like? He could have been like, I like this. It would have been much, much better, but he didn't have the opportunity. They weren't singing. So I think what he was trying to say was, he looks at whether the person's of legal age, and then he goes from there, which is still kind of weird. But I try my best to kind of interpret through the person's lens, because that's my job sometimes. So I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to say. You sound crazy, but I get what you're trying to say. You're trying to say you don't say I like young women. You're just saying you like people who are of legal age. Still weird, still creepy,
and let's not forget, besides being attracted to young girls, the other part of these charges include what is the legal term? How he held them hostage, didn't feed them. So is kidnapping one of the charges in the list of?
I think it's it's like a kidnapping charge, in the sense that the idea is that he was supposedly keeping these people against against their will,
Mhm.
which I think he talked about that, and he was saying that I think that's when he got the most upset,
Mhm.
because he was like, I never
Why
kept
would I do
anyone
that?
against their will.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have another question.
Sure.
I think this is an opportunity where we can discuss grooming and legal consent,
Mm.
because I'm not sure people understand what grooming is when it
Oh,
comes
yeah.
to being a pedophile. So
Mhm.
if you guys could talk about legal age of consent and grooming.
So legal age of consent varies from state to state,
Mhm.
right? So there's and listen at me talking like I'm the attorney, but from what I know, state to state it's
She's on
different.
the highway. It is different from
So
state to
real
state.
talk, when you're raising children,
Mhm.
these are things you have to know, because
Absolutely.
especially if you have young men at home,
Mhm.
right? I have a son. You want him to be aware of certain things, because if he decides that maybe he's attracted to a girl who's more than 4 years, his minor or younger than he is, or more than 3 years,
or sometimes if he's 18 and she's 17 and they're in the same grade.
Exactly that.
Mhm.
So these are things that you have to discuss with your children.
Mhm.
This is real life stuff, not just R. Kelly stuff, but you have to know what the law is in your state, so that your child doesn't get charged with sexual abuse or pedophilia or something like that. What's another, besides pedophilia, what are some other charges that come with, like you said, in certain states, if you're 18 and she's 17 or he's 17,
statutory rape.
that's what I was looking for.
Okay.
Statutory rape.
Mhm.
So statutory rape is something.
It just means that by statute it's rape, even though the person may have consented,
but they're not legal age
they're
to
not
consent.
of legal age. So under the statute, it's considered rape.
Okay. So what was the second part of that question, please, Peanut Gallery?
Grooming, which I thought you would be going on.
Yes. So, grooming, a lot of things take place with grooming. Typically, the person is nice. They're always nice to the minor. They do things for the minor to help them, to make them trust them.
Mhm.
So grooming includes gaining their trust, making, and it's so much more than just like the rapport they establish with that person, but they get that person to believe in them, to trust in them, so much that their own parents are no longer considered to be like their authority. Come closer. Their own parents are no longer considered their authority, because this person who has stepped in, sort of like a father figure or mother figure or whatever, they've gained their trust to the point of, like with these young girls, leaving their homes to live with R. Kelly. So there was a grooming process with these two young women who spoke in the interview today. How did they say how old they were when they met R. Kelly?
I think they said they were 14 and their parents encouraged them to lie.
They were 14?
Yeah, and their parents told them to say that they were 18.
So there's a question here: is R. Kelly really culpable because the girl's parents encouraged them to lie at a young age? And is this really his fault because they agreed to go along with it?
Is R. Kelly culpable because, okay, I think once he's aware that they were under 18, then yes.
Okay.
But my rule for just generally across the board with things like that is to check for yourself. Trust but verify, especially if you're, someone who dates people that are, close to the line, always check. I think in R. Kelly situation specifically, a lot of his issues stem from the fact that, he wanted to find these people in the mall and go to like McDonald's. And so it was known that the age group that he was looking for and was attracted to were people in a younger age group. So I feel for him, he obviously would need to have a higher level of verifying. Like he, at the point he realized, hey, I keep running into these young girls. They're accusing me of peeing on a young girl. Maybe I need to have some sort of system, some sort of check system in my house, a little computer or something where I run through and make sure so that I don't get in any additional problems. I mean, when you have that much at stake, because he has obviously he had a very illustrious career.
Mhm.
You have a lot at stake. And so putting simple things in place to protect that just makes sense. It just makes sense. It's not, you know, people might think that, oh my gosh, you know, this is extra stuff. But, you know, he's a person that has a lot to lose. And so that's why I think it's not something extra. It's something that would make sense based on his history and based on things that happened to him.
Now, I think for me, a concern with these cases is that and this is why I find it to be pathologic or to be something more serious than just these girls' parents gave them permission to be with R. Kelly, and he then hung out with them, brought them into their homes or whatever. He isolated them. From their stories with the doc series, these girls all talked about being isolated. And that's something that happens too when you're being groomed by an abuser. They isolate you from your source of support, from your family members. Now, the question would be, well, how supportive were these parents anyway, considering they allowed their children to become a part of his cult, as some people are calling it. So I think the isolation part for me is what kind of, it makes it a more serious issue than just he likes young girls.
What is it? Is there any psychological, not diagnosis, but term? Because a lot of people talk about how, well, the girls were fast. They're fast. And that's why they were, you know, chasing him or trying to date him or, you know, putting themselves in a position to be around him because these were fast teenagers as opposed to unfast.
Right.
But I don't, you know, is there anything that like an official term or some sort of
you mean for the young women?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that's not a disorder. Sometimes you think of precocious, but precocious is not necessarily me liking an older man. What some people may have called back in the day being fast or hot in the pants, or looking fast or hot in the pants. Sometimes boys and girls develop early. They develop certain signs of advancing into puberty early, so people consider that precocious, or maybe the way that they think is a little more advanced. But young women who like older men, that's not a disorder. That is something where, as a parent, you have to teach your children from a young age what's appropriate and what isn't.
Boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries. And when you see them doing certain things, you have to intervene, and you have to communicate to them and say, although you really love R. Kelly and his singing, you know, he's an artist, and it's okay to love his music, but that's where it ends. And I think for a lot of these girls, I'll say for a significant number of young women and boys who express themselves sexually, explicitly, it's because they've probably been exposed previously to some sort of sexual act or were abused or were molested. Something may have taken place, and more than likely took place somewhere in their childhood or their history that predisposes them to behave this way or to act that way.
Okay.
Oftentimes that is the case.
So should we talk about the double jeopardy thing?
Yeah, let's do that. So we're almost 45 minutes in, right? So let's talk about, I think that to me was like the most important question, because he even said it.
Right.
You can't double jeopardy me.
Right.
You can't double jeopardy me, like it was a verb.
Right. Well, again, that goes to the fact that he can only articulate himself through song.
Right.
And so we have to be a little forgiving of
Robert,
I mean, in that sense, not anything else. I mean, you know, he's not a lawyer, obviously. And apparently his legal team did not prepare him for this interview.
Not at all. Hung him out there to dry.
So no, he's not being double jeopardy because it's not the same. It's not the same case. Not the same accusers, not the same charges. And so the whole him yelling out, they're double jeopardying me is not only grammatically incorrect, it's also legally incorrect. So good luck with that.
We have a quick question over here. Ladies.
Sure.
So can we just really address adult and underage relationships? Because I'm not sure that people are understanding what is inappropriate contact with a minor.
Okay, which is a good question. And someone on Facebook is saying how when he grew up in South Carolina, that it was okay to, in the South, to date someone who was younger. And yes, we know that back in the day, certain things took place. Back in the day, you know, some fathers were raping their daughters, you know?
Right.
So
I think that goes more to the culture that speaks to women and tells girls that you mature faster than boys.
Right.
And so you're more mature. And so a lot of times I think part of their grooming is that the older man is like, well, you are mature. Right. Even though you're 14 or 15 or 16 and I'm 20 and some change, you just happen to be very mature for your age. And because society tells young girls, hey, you guys are, you mature faster than boys, it kind of goes with that narrative. I wonder why. Where did that start? If you know, like, I feel like it's...
And you mean physically mature.
You're saying, is that what they're meaning? Okay.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, in the way that I'm comprehending what you're saying, because it's true. So young girls can enter puberty before boys. And also the way that puberty takes place in a girl in comparison to a boy is different. Okay. So, you know, obviously women, when we're maturing, manifestations of maturity physically means growing breasts, rounder hips, things like that. And so it's more pronounced. For boys, you're not really necessarily going to notice a whole lot, except he's getting taller, his voice is getting deeper, and he notices that his penis may be growing in length, or that he's growing hair in his genital area. So you're right. The puberty stage is the way it happens. It's just so pronounced for young girls, and it just makes them more... it makes it more obvious that...
Okay. I thought I do think of it in that sense, but I always feel like the way that it was, the context was always that women are mentally maturing faster than boys, which is silly to me, because if you're 13 and he's 13, you guys are on the same level mentally. Like, what does that even mean when people say girls mature faster than boys? I always took it as to mean mentally. Right. I never thought of it physically, but physically,
you're right. You know, that true. Also.
But people do try to, or used to try to perpetuate that. And so I think a lot of times and I've had friends talk to me about this, especially when the R. Kelly thing started, saying, oh, well, I remember the old guys who used to hang out across the street from the high school and take everybody's girlfriend because the girls were like, oh, I want to date the older guys or whatever. But I think that was part of it, because there's a socialization that was saying, well, you're mentally this age, even though you're this age. So you shouldn't be attracted
to 14, but
boys.
You really think like you're 17.
Right.
So you can date a 17 or an 18-year-old.
Or a 19 or a 20 or 20, you know.
Yeah, and that's where parental guidance comes in, and talking with your kids and communicating with them that it's not okay. And you're, excuse me, you're right. A lot of people have said that. Oh, when we were in school, and I remember being in high school and some of the girls were dating guys in college.
Right.
And people turned a blind eye or looked the other way or was okay. It's one of those things where R. Kelly is in the limelight. He's famous. And I think, you know, because it happened so much, and that was just basically the basis of who he dated or who he dealt with personally. And then, like I said, besides dating younger women, the other issue is the sexual abuse, the isolation, the cult phenomenon, keeping them away from their families, tying them up, not allowing them to eat, not allowing them to leave the home. So those are also the other issues, not just that he was dating younger women.
We have a quick question too. Yes. So we have an instance of parents, for lack of a better word, selling their children to the Michael Jackson of the world, to the abducted in plain sight guy, to Bill Cosby. What role should the parents play in any type of prosecution, or what role did they play in causing these issues with these women?
I definitely think it's neglect. Legally, I don't know if is that what is can you prosecute or enabling a crime?
Yeah, it's difficult. You can say you're aiding and abetting. I guess if there's some strong evidence or testimony that the parents were actually facilitating some sort of human trafficking of their own children, then absolutely. I think a lot of times, you know, we're presuming it based on the circumstances, but it might be difficult to actually charge it because there is no evidence.
Like if they're... Not to interrupt, in the interview, the women, R. Kelly said the parents sold them to him.
Right.
Well, so I think, Do you think that the state's attorney can actually bring charges against the parents? Can that become another case?
Like, hey, listen, if there's some sort of check or there's some sort of wire transfer going to the parents' account every 2 weeks for the last 8 years and it's not explained in some way, then, and that's what I mean when I'm saying there has to be some sort of evidence to charge on, other than, to say that they're aiding and abetting a crime or that it's some sort of conspiracy. You have to be able to demonstrate it. I mean, honestly, when I heard them saying it, it's not that I disbelieved it. It's just that the way that it sounded was not like it was their words.
Gotcha.
It sounded like, not how you would, how if you were really sold, you wouldn't explain it that way.
Mm-hmm.
You might say my parents abandoned me or my parents left him with him. But would you actually say the words, my parents sold me? Like if you were you thought of yourself as a transaction. It sounds like something that somebody else is saying. Hey, your parents sold you to me.
Now, were they selling their daughters allegedly so they could get singing careers? Is that
I guess
the allegation?
The allegation is that the parents were just trying to get money. And they're just like...
What a sloppy mess. Wow. So the double jeopardy, is this double jeopardy? So the charges that he's been charged with now, those are not the same charges from over 10 years ago.
No.
Right?
No, there's no double jeopardy.
So the charges he was acquitted from or of, that was child pornography.
Correct.
And these charges, 10 charges of sexual abuse.
Different charges and different accusers.
Okay. So there's no double jeopardy here, guys. Don't let R. Kelly fool you. And listen, I want to say something. R. Kelly is high risk for suicide. He is high risk for attempting suicide. I don't want this to seem like we are tearing this man down. I think that this should be a lesson, a learning lesson for parents to talk to their children, because everyone keeps bringing up what was okay to do in the 80s and the 90s. I wouldn't dare allow, if I had a daughter, my daughter to date an older man in high school. I wouldn't allow that. And I think that just because it may have been okay or people allowed it before, it doesn't make it okay now. So R. Kelly is considered high risk for suicide. Financially, he's broke. He has no money. He has no support. He comes from a family.
He has 2 girls, as real.
Yeah. So there's really no support from his family.
Oh, no.
He has a lot of legal issues and charges pending. Spotify pulled all his music. So, how are you going to make money? So, people get desperate and they start thinking, they become hopeless. They feel helpless. So, to anyone who is a family member of R. Kelly, if you are watching or you watch this later, or you're a friend, reach out to him and let him know that he has support. He's in jail right now, right?
Right, absolutely.
He's out.
He's out.
Did he get out?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's out on bond.
No, so he went back though because of the child support.
Oh, he went back.
Yeah, he owes $160,000 in child support.
Dang it, Kels.
Yes, if he were in my jail, he'd be on suicide watch.
Oh yeah,
I would put him either in on suicide watch, or
he's probably in isolated. He's probably isolated because of who he is anyway. Like they're not going to have him in general population just having concerts and stuff.
Yeah. So, and when you're in segregation, you're even more high risk because you're isolated. You're away from everyone for several hours. And inmates have committed suicide in seg. So, the best, I guess we're starting to wrap up. Do we have any more questions? Someone's asking how to find you on IG. This is Not Just a Lawyer. Look on my page. I've tagged her and everything for Therapy Thursday tonight. This is Not Just a Lawyer. I see someone is saying the parents are guilty. The parents are very guilty, and they should feel awful.
The whole team, his whole team, the security, the bookers, because somebody had to be booking flights for 15-year-olds, and you have to know the person's first name, last name, and their date of birth. So when you put in the date of birth, or you giving the date of birth to the travel agent, and you're like, oh, this person was born in the 90s. And you gotta be like, no.
I want to clarify something. We said this already. In different states, the laws are different. Every state doesn't have the same law. Some states allow a minor to marry an older person with the consent of the parents. The parents can sign and allow that minor to marry another person, if they're underage. So thank you, Wayne Mingo. You're giving me all the evidence. I got it. But we know this. In certain states, the parents can sign and allow their child to marry an older man or a woman. But when that does not happen, then you may have a problem. There may be a problem legally.
May I say something? I think R. Kelly was doing really bad things. I don't know that jail is going to be the place, unless obviously someone like yourself is there. Yeah. To help him and really assist him through. I think that, he'll just really languish.
Yeah.
He'll really languish. I feel like he really should be. If all these things he's doing, and he's such a monster, he should be in a psych ward.
He should be. And I posted that some weeks ago, that R. Kelly should be committed to an inpatient psychiatric facility, and long-term, like a state hospital. Yeah. Long-term, a state hospital, somewhere where he can go. Because even if there's mental health care in the prison system, it's not going to be the same. He needs to be on someone's inpatient unit in a state hospital, getting daily treatment, going to groups, meeting with a therapist individually, meeting with a psychiatrist, getting medicated if he needs it. I totally agree, because the prisons are no place to rehabilitate someone who has such a severe mental illness as R. Kelly.
And for so long, allowed to, be in it for so long.
Any other questions or comments from the gallery? Instagram, Facebook rep?
No, there's no questions.
Okay. Wow. January 2019, supposedly R. Kelly wrote a letter last October to one of his lawyers, to one of the girl's attorneys, threatening to reveal embarrassing details of her sexual history if she didn't drop her May 2018 lawsuit.
Right.
Accusing him of sexual abuse. Wow. R. Kelly had a house that was valued at $5 million. At one point, it only sold for $950,000.
So we know where he's living.
I wish I got that house. That was a come up for whoever acquired it.
Right. They were like, "Ooh, this is a deal." It's like they went to Ross, but for houses. TJ Maxx.
This whole doc series and this Mute R. Kelly has really, is killing this man.
Right. It's crazy. I just think it's interesting what kind of the level that we're allowed to, that the media is allowed to go to with some. I mean, once you're a public figure, you're open. Yeah. So you have to accept the good, which is your millions and millions of dollars and your millions and millions of fans, and also the negative. So I guess that's kind of the drawback.
Yeah, they came after him. I think that doc series was basically the nail in the coffin.
Okay, we have one last question.
Okay.
One last question.
Is there any reason a grown man has entertaining a 17-year-old? Any reason?
Right. She said because he's a pedophile.
Okay.
Well, and also mentally, he didn't develop. Mentally, he didn't develop, right? Because if you're a grown man, how is a 17-year-old engaging to you? So I think, I'm glad you read that comment. Thank you, that question. And that's the other part of it. For someone who's older to be satisfied with the conversation and the intellect of a teenager, that says a lot about who he is and what he is not capable of.
Right.
So that really suggests that man is intellectually lacking, has his own mental health issues and mental health problems, because and it's also a power thing too, I think. I think also feeling empowered that he can, control a younger woman. And usually young girls are more susceptible to that than an older woman. I mean, you can do it too with some older women.
Right.
However,
like
it's
the grown
easier.
Women that were in the docuseries. I was like, but you're grown.
Right.
No, wait, no.
Well, you
got played. You didn't get sexually abused. You were tripping. But there were people that were getting sexually abused.
Right.
We have the next to the last question is, there's a lot of people trying to make this as a race issue. What Elvis, Caucasians, the Catholic Church, what do you have to say about those men preying on everyone?
They are just as guilty.
Right. Absolutely.
We're not saying that they're not guilty. So our Instagram live ended. You can save it. Yeah. So Instagram ended. It'll probably take a while once it saves. Okay. But yeah, they're just as guilty. Unfortunately, you know what? And you know better than I do because this is what you do. The judicial system is not fair. So whereas maybe they are going after certain Black men to prosecute and put them away, they haven't done it in the majority or in other populations. And that's been going on for a very long time in the judicial system. Black men get arrested more. They get sentenced to longer sentences in comparison to the majority. So if I were a Black male, I'd be very careful not to break the damn law.
Right. I mean, I think the issue, I get it why people are saying it's a race issue, right? Because, you know, Harvey Weinstein was accused of a lot of things and there was no mute Harvey Weinstein. Let's pull all of his hundreds of movies. You know, there just seems to be a different standard, you know, for people who even are accused of the exact same behavior. So I get how people think that. And I think there is, you know, there's a disparity in sentencing. There's a disparity in the way that laws are applied. But I think that right now what's happening is that R. Kelly's case is garnering so much attention. And so that attention is putting pressure on the actors, the prosecutors, because you saw after the docuseries was released, the state attorney in Chicago went on TV asking people to come forward, which is not something you just typically see. The state attorney doesn't just have press conferences and say, hey, if you know anything about anybody, come tell us. So I don't see that same type of energy being placed on any of the perpetrators that aren't Black. I haven't seen a Harvey Weinstein tell-all. I've only seen MJ and R. Kelly so far. But maybe there's a Harvey Weinstein docuseries in the works, Surviving Harvey Weinstein, The Director's Couch or something. You know, maybe it's coming. Let's just be hopeful.
And with that, that's the last word, guys.
All right.
Thank you for joining us on Therapy Thursday. Again, this is Attorney Esquire. I like the word Esquire. Attorney Sue Ann Robinson. You can find her on, you want to give your social handles?
Oh, yes. At Not Just a Lawyer on all social media platforms.
So just in case for some reason you guys didn't get that, Not Just a Lawyer. Not just a lawyer.
LAWYER. Spell lawyer right. Use your Googles. Use your Google show.
Sue
Ann Robinson.
So define your name for social media. Why do you go by Not Just a Lawyer? I know why, but I want other people to know.
I have two meanings. Not just a lawyer, because in my tagline for my firm is that I'm not just a lawyer, I'm your lawyer.
Okay.
You know, once I'm retained, obviously. And then because I don't just only practice law, I do a lot of other things. I do a lot of broadcast things. I have a show on Stars called Wrong Man, where we investigate people that are say that they're wrongfully convicted to see if they really are or not the wrong man. So it's streaming now on Stars. So feel free to check it out. I'm a mom.
What is it called?
Wrong Man.
Wrong Man.
And, you know, I'm a mom. And so I have a lot of different dimensions. And so that's why I say I'm not just a lawyer. Because a lot of times if you're a lawyer or any field, people identify you as your profession first. So I don't particularly feel like I identify as my profession first in every stage, at every place.
Exactly.
So, you know.
There it is.
Bye,
cheers.
Guys. Oh, yes. Cheers. Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me, ma'am.
Of course. Everyone have a great night. Say brain love.
Brain love.
All righty.
So Not Just a Lawyer